Good morning, our viewers. My name is Dr. Adityanjee, and I invite you all on behalf of the Council for Strategic Affairs for our monthly roundtable discussion. Today's roundtable discussion is very interesting and very relevant and timely. So those of you who register using our flyers saw this particular flyer. To be on record, today is Saturday, June 8, 2024, 10 a.m. Eastern Daytime. It's around 7:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time. A little bit about Council for Strategic Affairs. CSA imparts education in the field of international relations. The Council fosters discussion, dialogue, and debate on geopolitical issues. CSA encourages strategic studies in general to raise the level of awareness. We as an organization condemn terrorism in all forms worldwide. The CSA aims to contribute towards world peace and prosperity. The Council promotes people-to-people contact and track-to diplomacy. We have monthly roundtable discussion, usually on second Saturday of each month at 10 a.m. Eastern Daytime. There's a monthly guest lecture by a domain expert on fourth Saturday of each month. There's a one-on-one interview with me called Strategically Speaking with Dr. Adityanjee. We organize symposia, meetings, and conferences. We promote publications of articles on geopolitics and related subjects. We do have a summer internship program, and we have a fellowship training program in strategic studies. So the topic for today's roundtable discussion is collective security in East Asia and Southeast Asia. We have four distinguished panelists: Brigadier Dr. Arun Sahgal, Dr. Satoru Nagao from Japan, Major General Dr. G.D.Bakshi, and Ambassador Dr. Gurjit Singh. These are all well-established experts. And let me introduce Brigadier Dr. Arun Sahgal. Brigadier Dr. Arun Sahgal is a retired Brigadier of Indian Army, and he is the Executive Director of Forum for Strategic Studies, a policy think tank focusing on national security, diplomacy, and track-to dialogues. He was previously the founding director of the Office of Net Assessments, Indian Integrated Defense Staff, head of Center for Strategic Studies and Simulation, USI of India, and senior fellow at the Institute of Defense Studies and Analysis in New Delhi. His research comprises scenario planning workshops, geopolitical and strategic assessments related to Asian security and issues concerning nuclear doctrine and strategic stability in Asia, in South Asia. His publications include co-authored books and net assessments for the IDS, DRDO, and Indian National Security Council, among other clients. He has been a member of the Task Force on Net Assessment and Simulation under the NSC and consultant with DRDO. He published a monograph on strategic stability in South Asia. He conducts simulation and strategic games at IDS, Ministry of Defense, National Defense College, College of Defense Management, and other international clients. He is a member of many Track 1.5 and Track 2 initiatives. I'm very proud to say that he's a member of our International Advisory Board at the CSA, and he has appeared in multiple roundtable discussions as well as delivered distinguished lectures. Our second panelist is Dr. Satoru Nagao, and Dr. Satoru Nagao is a non-resident fellow at the Hudson Institute in US, but he is based in Tokyo, Japan. From December 17th, December 2017 through November 2020, he was a visiting fellow at the Hudson Institute based in Washington, D.C. His primary research is US, Japan, India security cooperation. He was awarded his PhD by Gakushuen University in 2011 for his thesis, India's Military Strategy. The first such research thesis on this topic in Japan. Gakushuen University is a premier institution from which members of Japanese imperial family have also graduated. Dr. Nagao holds numerous other research positions, including Director of International Security Industrial Council, Senior Research Fellow at Japan Forum for Strategic Studies, Specially Appointed Research Fellow at Japan Forum for International Relations. It's a very long list, so I will not be reading it. He has authored numerous books and articles on security issues, and he contributes to the column Age of Japan-India Alliance at Nikkei Business, the journal of one of the Japan's leading newspapers. And I'm again very proud to say that he has appeared on our platform several times before. Our third panelist is Major General G.D.Bakshi. Major General G.D.Bakshi is an emblem of valor and leadership in the Indian Armed Forces. He has left an indelible mark on nation security landscape. His illustrious military career is characterized by courage and strategic brilliance. He has garnered accolades for safeguarding national interests. Beyond the battlefield, Major General Bakshi transforms into a compelling speaker and astute defense analyst. He articulates profound insights on geopolitical affairs and military strategies. He captivates audiences with his passion for national defense. He's a staunch advocate for armed forces. His resonant voice extends beyond the military circles, fostering a deeper understanding of patriotism and national security among the wider public. He is a very famous author, analyst, and media personality, and is sought after on various print, electronic, and other media outlets. And our last panelist is Ambassador Dr. Gurjit Singh, who is the former ambassador of India to Germany, Indonesia, Ethiopia, and European Union. He chaired the CII Business Task Force on trilateral cooperation in Africa, including the Asia-Africa Growth Corridor with Japan. He comments on current events on TV and in journals. His report on such cooperation in 2019 focused on private sector engagement to make trilateral successful. He is associated with social impact investment in movement and is working on expanding it in Africa, along with other trilateral initiatives, including with Japan for B2B engagement. He is independent director of companies achieving social impact. He is associated with civil society efforts through Avishkar Foundation and Advisory Council of Nobel Peace Laureate Kailash Satyarthi. He has other interests including cinema, cricket. He's a qualified umpire from Kenya Cricket Association. He enjoys traveling, enjoys culture. He has a lot of passions and hobbies. He's married with 2 children. And I'm again proud to say that Ambassador Dr. Gurjit Singh has appeared on our new feature, Strategically Speaking with Dr. Adityanjee. So let me come to the format of the program, roundtable discussion. Following moderator's introduction, each panelist will make an opening statement for 7 minutes each. My request to the panelists is not to exceed 7 minutes to respect other people's time. This will be followed by a moderated discussion for 30 minutes. Subsequent to that, we will have question and answers from the audience. And in the end, we will have 5 minutes closing comments by me. My request to the fellow panelists is that please don't interrupt the other panelists when they are speaking, and please don't have a back and forth argument with other panelists. So Pertinent questions whenever we talk about any collective regional security arrangement. Most of the collective security arrangements are regional. There is none which is global or purports to be global. Is there a threat to peace in the region? Who are the parties to the perceived threat to stability? What is the strategic posture of the regional hegemon? Who is emerging as a victor and who is losing this balance of power? These are pertinent questions to discuss. Before I start inviting our distinguished panelists, some housekeeping rules for our audience. Please stay muted to avoid noise interference. Please change your cell phone settings to vibration mode. Please do not try to interrupt our esteemed panelists. Only those members of the audience who identify themselves openly will be allowed to ask questions. No anonymous questioners, please. All the questions are moderated through the chat room. Please send very specific questions, no monologue or detailed lecture in the question format. The program is being recorded. It is being simultaneously live streamed on our YouTube channel. So without further ado, I will invite our first distinguished panelist, Brigadier Arun Sahgal. So Brigadier sir, the floor is yours. Kindly start with your comments.
Thank you, Adityanjee. For some reason, I'm always the first one to go. So, okay, so I was expecting that. I'm very grateful and honored to be a panelist in this very important discussion, uh, which looks at how the regional security architecture is being shaped by multiple players who are trying to uh, police power, influence, and deal with the emerging scenarios. I'll cover my talk in four parts. Firstly, the emerging order, a period of contestation, contours of confrontation, Chinese US attempt at creating a, a security architecture in East Asia and Southeast Asia, and lastly, finish with some remarks on the security dynamics in India, in the Indian Ocean region. Fundamentally, what we are seeing today is an unprecedented strategic competition. The concert of China and Russia are challenging. The most important issue is that the concert of China and Russia are challenging the West's influence all across in Europe, in West Asia, and Indo-Pacific, and extending their reach to the global South. China and Russia are also collectively are contesting the U.S. primacy in the more inclusive economic and technological domains, and China is trying to establish its own order through what it calls the common destiny of mankind and initiatives such as the Global Security Initiative, Global Development Initiatives, and the civilizational initiative. So, the interesting point to note is that there are two elements of power structure which are emerging. So, these are the power structures which are trying to create their own dynamics. For example, the BRICS, the SEO, de-dollarizations are some of the aspects which these elements are trying to reshape the global order from what were a Westphalian order that had emerged over this time. And this has happened primarily because of the events primarily in Ukraine and subsequent fallouts in West Asia, and more importantly, even in Indo-Pacific. Two axes are emerging, east and west, interlocking. The important part is that the regions are increasingly getting consumed in intrinsic conflicts. For example, Ukraine is a never-ending war. The 160 odd billion dollars have been pumped into Ukraine to maintain the status of the Ukrainian people to contest the Russians. The whole idea is to degrade and denude the Russian capabilities and capacities. Similarly, we are seeing in Gaza another conflict emerging. And there again, the large scale imperative is that the American overindulgence in that conflict in trying to stabilize the region. But we also see the Chinese and the Russians are also moving into this region through a new dynamics which is emerging, which is, well, it's not really an alignment, but it is an imperative which is emerging. Not imperative, it's a concert which is emerging, which is called the CRINC. I would call it the CRINC: China, Russia, Iran, North Korea axis. So this axis has got two elements. One is West Asia centric, where the China, Russia, and Iran are becoming important players. Please note, recently on the Caspian Sea, a railway line has been created, which provides direct connection from Bandar Abbas, a rail link to the Caspian Sea, and from there you have a much better connectivity to Saint Petersburg and onto the Eastern Europe. So the Western dilemma is getting exacerbated by escalating conflict in all these areas. The the interesting aspect of this whole issue is that while the conflict is escalating, the security managers in the United States are sanguine that they have the intrinsic power and capacity, and this was the remark made by President Biden during the recent meeting, uh, that United States have the intrinsic power and capacity to deal with these multiple challenges. This is an issue which is escalating tensions. Both sides believe that they have the intrinsic power and the capacity to deal with these challenges. Now I come to East and Southeast Asia. In trying to understand the collective security construct in East Asia and Southeast Asia, we need to focus on two antagonists and their respective perspective. As for China, it is asserting power through muscle flexing and dominating the sea lines of communication in South China Sea and gray zone operations essentially centered around Taiwan. It is preparing for a possible operational contingency which includes invasion of Taiwan at some stage, not now, but it is certainly trying to maximize its operational capacity and capabilities through posturing to to basically try to create an environment in which it can intimidate Taiwan and also intimidate the United States and its allies. For China, contestation with US and allies in South China Sea and Taiwan is central to its power projection. Please note, as far as China is concerned, the power projection in South China Sea as well as in the Taiwan Strait is central to its power projection. Beyond this, because today China, despite its power, despite its influence, is a constrained by in terms of its application of power. On the east, it is constrained by the first island chain. In the south, although it has control over the South China Sea by and large, but it still cannot project power to the west because on the west it has a strong deal with a strong and credible India. So therefore, as the Chinese are concerned, they have to break the logjam. And for China, the route to global power extends through its ability to project power beyond the first island chain. As long as the United States and its allies are strong and credible over here, they will not be able to project power. That's something which the Chinese understand. And as far as the West is concerned, where it's the critical routes, sea lines of communication and trade routes lie, the Chinese have limited capacity. They have no uh, spaces. They are creating ports and other facilities, but it's a long-term project. So, for that perspective, China will contest, project, and always be to contest any assertions by the West under any circumstances. Contesting these is now we are seeing an emergence of what I call a U.S. consolidation of its collective security architecture in East Asia. It is based on multiple steps to consolidate both collective security and enhance and upgrade military capabilities. Squad is a limited design to push back against Chinese assertions in the South China Sea, essentially to ensure the Boshai Channel in Philippines, as well as the Chinese assertions in the region, are contained and constrained. Then we also see an emergence of a new alignment structure that which is called which is created by the upgradation of intelligence, air defense, and other capabilities through trilaterals, that is trilateral of United States, Japan, and Australia, which is also uh, some of the other important steps, are being taken is to contest Chinese claims in East China and South China Sea. With then there is also an alliance of partnership which is emerging uh, in the maritime domain awareness and combating illegal and unmitigated fishing activities. There is a support to Japan's counter-strike and Australia's large-scale strike capabilities. There is a possibility of Japan-Korea cooperation and association with AUKUS in Pillar 2 coming up. Then there is Japan-Australia reciprocal access agreement, which is leading to deployment of F-35s. So all these elements are being done to strengthen the eastern bulwark against the Chinese. Now I come to Southeast Asia. In Southeast Asia, the it's a different ball game. In Southeast Asia, I look at Southeast Asia from two perspectives: the peninsular ASEAN and the maritime ASEAN. In the peninsular ASEAN, the centrality of Chinese power is there. Its economic power as well as its military power because of its close ties and its proximity. The As far as the maritime is concerned, Philippines has gone out of the circle. Philippines is a contested territory, but Indonesia, which Ambassador Gurjit has much more knowledge than I have, is an area which is up for grabs. And here, the Chinese influence is increasing because of its economic investments, and by and large, uh, attitude of the Indonesians, which by and large is non-aligned. They do not want to take sides with anybody. So, as per the latest studies that have come out, the ASEAN is directly under the influence of the Chinese. 59.5% ASEANs look at China as the key strategic partners, vis-a-vis the 43 odd percent of the Americans. The investments are very limited. India is concerned of the ASEAN, is there are only 4% people who think India is an important player, and that is primarily because India at this point in time is a credible economic partner, but in terms of its strategic capacity and capabilities, and particularly military capacity and capabilities, they feel that India may not be able to provide the kind of strategic balance against the intrusiveness of the Chinese in the region at this particular juncture. Tomorrow, when India develops more greater credibility in terms of its military capability, particularly its SSNs and its nuclear missile systems and its long-range cruise missile systems, they come to play, then India would probably be an accepted as a more who can assert its power and influence, not to contest China, but to maintain a degree of stability. As far as the Indian Ocean is concerned, the basic issue is uh, in Indian Ocean. Importantly, is part of what I call a strategic triangle of the Indo-Pacific. There are three important players. In the north is China, which looks at the continental and the rimland, and the east is the United States-led alliance system comprising of U.S. China, US, Japan, Australia, and Korea, and now Philippines. And in the West, it is India. Between this is what I call the strategic buffer of South China Sea, where the nine dash line Chinese have asserted influence and provided depth to the Han mainland, where its industrial hub lies. So, for as far as India is concerned, India is capable of dealing with Chinese threat at this point in time, both in the continental as well as in the maritime domain. But that is not going to be enough. Tomorrow, in terms of application of power and assertion of power, in next 4 to 5 years, we will see Chinese assertions becoming much more swifter and much more deliberate on the West as part of their two ocean strategy. And their Chinese movement of carrier troops into the Indian Ocean is going to be a reality. India has to create this kind of relationship. So when we talk to our American friends and say there is a need for credible security architecture, what we are basically looking at is United States and India partnering in collective security in terms of developing credible military capacities and capabilities and support in terms of maritime security initiatives, in terms of ISR and other to ensure that we can keep Chinese under check, particularly in terms of application of power and decision. I'll stop. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brigadier Arun Sahgal. As usual, you give us a very lucid picture of the current security situation in East Asia as well as Southeast Asia. So we'll follow it up. Our next panelist is Dr. Satoru Nagao from Japan. He's based in Tokyo and it is around 11:30 p.m. there. So my pleasure to invite Dr. Nagao. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me. It is honor for me to make presentation in front of these distinguished experts. But at the same time, indeed, I prepared a 7 minutes presentation, but there are many similarities with the previous presentation, indeed. So my presentation will be a little short, but summary of him. Because I'm focusing on China is getting a chance just now, then what should we do? It's a matter of concern. Because when we checked China's activity recently, China has escalated its activities in the South China Sea, Taiwan, and East China Sea. In the South China Sea, China Coast Guard vessels have been accused of harassing and preventing Filipino fishermen and law enforcement agencies from operating in the disputed waters. So that is a recent move, and we can see the many news about it. Around Taiwan, China's joint sword 2024A exercises in May 2024 was the third round of large-scale military exercises China has staged around Taiwan in recent years. So following the unprecedented exercises in August 2022, when Nancy Pelosi, the U.S. House Speaker, visited Taiwan that time, and another round in April 2023, when the former President Tsai Ing-wen of the DPP met with U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy during her transit stay in the U.S. So this is third time China conducted such kind of large-scale military exercises, and China named this exercise the Joint Sword 2024A. A is maybe important word because B, C, D will follow. So that's why it will escalate, we can expect. And the East China Sea, China has escalated its activity around the East China Sea. Since 2008, China has started to increase activity around Senkaku Island of Japan. And the number of activities has increased just to 12 in 2011, was 1,097 in 2090. So 1 decade, just 1 decade, but from 12 to the 1,097. So China's ship activity around Senkaku Island has clearly escalated, drastically escalated step by step. So recent sign is just yesterday, the 4 Chinese Coast Guard ships, each apparently equipped with the cannons, have temporarily entered Japanese territory waters near the Senkaku Island of Japan. So this is the first time all ships of the group entering were confirmed to have such apparent arms. So in the past, it said many past navigation by 4 Chinese government ships, only one has a cannon. So step by step, China escalates their activities. So we can expect it will escalate more in the future. So why such kind of situations happen in the many places at the same time is a matter of concern. And concerns already pointed out is US is facing shortage of resources to deal with China. That's a matter of concern because the US need to support Ukraine, Israel, and other the Indo-Pacific countries around China, despite the US is under presidential election by November this year. So now resources, including the both material and time or other labor forces, so such kind of situation. So they are occupied by other work. So how to deal with China is a matter of concern, especially from now to November. So even though the US is one strong superpower, supporting the 3 or 4 fronts at the same time, it's a little too tall or something like that. So now the US enemies like China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, etc., are getting a chance to maximize its benefit, I think. For example, if China invade Taiwan totally, there is a high possibility that the US Biden administration will intervene. So in this case, no problem. But if China's move is more weaker one, for example, there is a possibility that the Biden administration will hesitate to intervene. For example, even if China will start to construct another artificial island in the South China Sea, it is not clear that the Biden administration will intervene or not. So this is a chance for China. This is a chance China can exploit the situation until the November this year. So therefore, it is wise for the US partners to share the security burden with the United States, I think. So countries around China, such as India, Japan, must look to reinforce our military forces as soon as possible. And recently, we found a good example in Philippines. Despite the responsible official repeatedly saying that Quad is not a military alliance, it is also true that military cooperation of the Quad country has progressed bilaterally. So one of the examples is supporting Philippines. Recently, all the Quad countries are providing weapons and deploying ships or military planes in Philippines. Japan is providing Philippines radars, Coast Guard vessels, something like that. But in case of India, India's role is vital and very important, and India has already contributed. Because India provides most important weapons such as the supersonic cruise missile BrahMos, because for island country like Philippines, anti-ship missile is the key weapon to block the sea between island and islands. So that is why India took the most important role, most important responsibility in this case, because there is a BrahMos. China's move need to rethink their pricing because they worry about retaliation from Philippines by using BrahMos. So therefore, now is the time to show Quad security cooperation. And especially in case of this cooperation, India's role is the most important, I think. That's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Nagao, for very succinct presentation, which is to the point. focusing on the regional dynamics, and we'll come back to it. We had Major General G.D.Bakshi also as a panelist. Is Major General G.D.Bakshi there? It does not seem he has been able to join. So I'll go on to the next panelist, and that is our last panelist, Ambassador Dr. Gurjit Singh, who I had already introduced, who has a very deep academic interest in East Asia and Southeast Asia. So the floor is yours, Ambassador Gurjit Singh.
Thank you, Dr. Adityanjee. A pleasure to be with you and with such eminent and eloquent panelists. The theme of collective security in East Asia and Southeast Asia, to me, sounds slightly outdated. First, the nomenclature. While East Asia, Southeast Asia, along with South Asia and West Asia, continue to be important geographical segregations, the threats and opportunities therein are becoming more unified and globalized. And as we move towards a more maritime security issue rather than only a land-based security cause. Second, collective security as such was the hallmark of post-World War II arrangements. In our region, SEATO was established in Southeast Asia, while Japan and Australia, among others, were American allies. There was the ANZUS Pact as well. The Soviet Union tried a collective security in Asia concept, but that did not succeed, and ultimately SEATO also folded up. The threat perception after the Cold War ended moved towards non-traditional threats, on which there was greater cohesion of security. These included dealing with terrorism, piracy, illegal fishing, money laundering, drugs, illegal migration, cybercrime, and the like. In fact, the ASEAN Regional Forum, established in 1994 as the regional security architecture, spent most of its time on this rather than any traditional threats, because it came up in the post-Cold War period. Many countries collaborate on non-traditional threats, as India does in Southeast Asia, with 6 of the 10 ASEAN members with whom it has coordinated patrols and exercises. It is after 2010, with rising aggressive intent of China, that the nature of threats to security altered. China pursued its 9-dash line relentlessly and pushed several friends in ASEAN on the back foot. Since 2012, Chinese aggression and intrusions have dominated the security thinking in the region. Chinese hegemony over the South China Sea is detrimental, as Brigadier Sahgal has pointed out, to other countries in the region. They need to respond. This response has to factor in that ASEAN does not take adequate power measures to deal with China. Their diplomatic efforts for more than 2 decades to have a code of conduct to regulate China in the South China Sea have been infructuous. The nature of security threats, therefore, has moved beyond NTS to more traditional threats from China, which Dr. Nagao has eloquently pointed out. China seeks dominance and hegemony. India, Japan, Australia, and the USA, which have now returned to the region, want to keep the region free and open. During this period, the concept of Asia Pacific, which was essentially Southeast Asia plus East Asia, extending up to the US and parts of Latin America, has shifted and is now better known as the Indo-Pacific. The Indo-Pacific is a more strategic concept than the Asia-Pacific and includes India. Indo-Pacific policies by various countries are essentially aimed to deny China sole dominance in the region. That is why China and Russia don't like the concept of Indo-Pacific. The rise of the Chinese Navy, its economic heft as visible through the BRI, have won it many friends who often turn a blind eye to strategic transgressions in exchange for economic benefits. There's more of a strategic arbitrage going on by ASEAN countries who, instead of defending themselves, are quite happy to trade off intrusion versus more assistance. Now, Philippines is the one country which is now standing up. China seeks to reorder the region in its own priorities and objectives. Brigadier Sahgal has already mentioned this, so I am not elaborating. As the core Chinese economy falters, their ability to provide large funds becomes in doubt. Their ability to implement projects in a timely and effective manner, which will earn enough to repay debts, is also in doubt. Therefore, the partners of ASEAN and the Southern Pacific countries, which are the main areas of contention in our region today, need to devise methods which will not only provide a security umbrella, but will also provide functional, technological, and economic security opportunities for the region. With AUKUS and NATO, after the Ukraine crisis, the US-led allies seek to integrate strategic concerns of Europe with allies in the Indo-Pacific. India is not game for this. The Taiwan issue adds further complications. For the Indo-Pacific powers like India, Japan, and Australia, the main threat is China, not Russia. And now, what Dr. Nagao said, in a crisis, will the US stand up? My point is, we cannot depend on the US alone. If our region is threatened by Chinese domination, India, Japan, and Australia, and other friendly powers would need to find ways to counter China, whether the Americans come in or not. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Ambassador Gurjit Singh, for summarizing the current security threat perception and possible solutions from an Asian perspective. So we go to the phase of moderated discussion, and I will start with a question to Dr. Nagao. Dr. Nagao, Japan is facing some security challenges vis-a-vis China on the issue of Senkaku Islands. But Japan also has simultaneously a dispute going on with Russian Federation on the Kuril Islands. At the same time, because of the historical issues, Japan and Taiwan are at loggerheads, not just about Senkaku Islands, but other islands also. Under the current situation, does it make sense for Japanese government to resolve the bilateral dispute with Taiwan on Taiping Islands and try to manage the relationship with Russian Federation so you are able to contain China single-handedly?
Thank you very much, Raj. It is a very interesting question. So I can remember, but yes, when Russia solved the territory problem with China, that timing, Russia was weak and China exploited that timing. So if there is a good chance for Japan to solve the territorial issue with Taiwan, that is a good chance too, because both Japan and Taiwan claim the Senkaku Island as their territory. That's true. But at the same time, this kind of territory issue, it is not easy to solve, and there is a risk also. If Japan raises issue of the territory between Japan and Taiwan, there is a possibility Taiwan's people do not want to raise this issue just now because there is a possibility that their patriotism also lies against Japan. So I think you are right. Yes, Japanese government is very clever and has the courage to exploit this situation. Yes, that could possible, but at the same time, I believe there's a high possibility that the Japanese government cannot make something consensus to do it. Instead of this, they try to avoid this issue to talk. That is maybe quite Japanese style diplomacy, I believe, because the Japanese consensus societies, every time they need agreement in the group, except some cases, of course, like the Shinzo Abe, in some cases we can find strong leadership, but except him, we cannot find so strong leadership in Japan. So that's why it is not easy to make such kind of level of consensus to do it, I believe. But that's answer, sir.
You did focus on Taiwan issue, but what about Japan-Russian dispute? What is Japanese government trying to do and how far it try to do to resolve the dispute over Kuril Islands so that you can isolate the adversary that is actually the strategic threat?
In case of the Kuril Islands, Northern Territory, it is impossible to solve just now because Russia rely on China and Russia needs Kuril Island for security reasons. When the Russia need to deal with the United States, Russia needs a place for the nuclear ballistic missile submarine to hide. That is the Sea of Okhotsk. But the Sea of Okhotsk, there is no port to stay. So that's why Vladivostok is the port. So from Vladivostok to the Sea of Okhotsk, the nuclear ballistic submarine travels through the three straits between the island of Japan. So, for example, the Hokkaido and Honshu, there is Tsugaru Strait. So these submarine cross these routes, something like that. So that's why when these submarine enter the Sea of Okhotsk, they need to cross the Kuril Island also. So at the gate of the Sea of Okhotsk, which is the secret area of the nuclear ballistic submarine against the United States, they need this gate, the Kuril Island, Northern Ireland. So Northern Territories. So that's why now Northern Territory is very strategic place militarily. That's why Russia will not abandon this territory so easily, I believe. If Japan really need to take back this territory, we need to use military instead of negotiation, we believe just now, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Nagao. Just wanted to get some clarification on that. My next question will go to Brigadier Sahgal. Brigadier Sahgal, in the larger scheme of things, as we move from unipolarity to nascent multipolarity, and you did give some suggestions to still the dominant superpower, United States. What should be the United States posture in Asia, specifically in Southeast Asia and East Asia? Because the structures United States, the security structures United States is trying to develop conform to the older worldview that Asian countries do not subscribe to. That is primarily an Anglo-Saxon alliance. So the newer security structures like AUKUS, there's some talk about inviting New Zealand into that. There's talk about maybe making Japan a partner in AUKUS. But US has not talked about maybe making India a partner in AUKUS. Do you have any comments on that?
Yes, absolutely. A very interesting question, sir. See, we have to understand United States security architecture, which is trying to carve out in East Asia, is based on the predominant American power, its strategic influence, and the capacities and capabilities of its alliance partners, which are limited. As you are aware, Japan has been pacifist for a large period of time. Now only their new defense strategy has come out. They are trying to enhance their capacities and capabilities. Similarly, AUKUS is trying to upgrade the Australian military power and capabilities. But all this that we are looking at right now is beyond 2035. Please understand that these capacities and capabilities are not going to come in play till 2035. This gives the period of next 10 years of great strategic importance for and an opportunity for the Chinese. Does the Chinese have the capability and the capacity to escalate and take on Taiwan, or to ensure that the American, the Philippines, the Boshai Channel approach is denied to the American military power? So this is the contestation that is taking place at this particular point in time. The basic issue that we have to understand is this: in the balance of power equations in Indo-Pacific, and not only in East Asia, the centrality of these equations rests on Sino-US competition, which is beyond the military, but equally into economic and technology domains. So the idea basically is this: as China wants to become in next 2035, and certainly by the time it completes its century of 2049, China is looking at becoming a global player. My thesis is very straightforward. China cannot be a global player as long as it remains constrained. So it has to break out from the logjam that it is stuck in right now. And that breakout will be, as far as the East is concerned, is strongly challenged. As far as the West is concerned, through the Indian Ocean region, is an area of, of relatively ease, but the lines are long and they do not have the capacities. So as far as India, United States, and the Quad partners are concerned, and this is what I keep telling my American friends all the time, is the fact is that you cannot have one bookend of the Indo-Pacific strong and leave the other bookend weak. And it is for this region that now we have started having negotiations with the Fifth Fleet of the Chinese Americans, which is in deployed in Middle East, to closely act with us, jointly do exercises, develop interoperability, essentially to deal with the kind of exercises which the Chinese, Russians, the Iranians are trying to do in the region, and try to control the Persian Gulf energy slots. So, so this is a game which is being played. Our problem is that we are only looking at East Asia. East Asia is a strong wall. It has to be done. It cannot be breached. Okay. My last point is, you talked about the Japanese position on this Taiwan and blah, blah. Please understand one thing, and Dr. Nobu also talked about it. Please try to understand this. The centrality of American support rests on one single factor: the credibility of his military power and ability to leverage it in circumstances of conflict. Now, this is where the problem comes. how much will United States, if China, for example, just a hypothetical, China attacks Taiwan, will United States enter the war? And will United States enter the war under what circumstances? Americans are trying to do a lot of things. They're creating a lot of new bases, a lot of airfields. The old islands are being redone up. Mr. Nobu knows about it. We follow them very closely. But the point is, those are little ticks. They're not very important. Because why? United States is willing with China when its military industrial base is backing it up in this region, which is more than 300 nautical miles. That's all. And it has the capabilities and long term missile capabilities, military power capabilities to project power. How do you restrain them? That is where the whole problem comes in. So this is where the issue is genuine, forward. And my last point is, recently we were told, as far as Southeast Asia, you asked me a question. Southeast Asians are concerned. We were told by a very senior ASEAN member who had come visiting us in Delhi, is that as far as Indonesia is concerned, that in any conflict scenario between United States and China, and which impacts the Southeast Asia, they are thinking of declaring neutrality under those circumstances. Whatever that means in terms of neutrality, I do not know. Ambassador will be able to tell us much more, but that is what their option they are looking at. Thank you.
Thank you, Brigadier Sahgal, and that brings me to an opportunity to engage Ambassador Gurjit Singh into discussion. Ambassador Gurjit Singh, you did talk about, the sort of ASEAN binary, the land-based, threat perception versus maritime domain threat perception in the ASEAN region. The problem with ASEAN is that it has been continuing to appease China as a rising hegemon and agreeing to, by default, all the Chinese belligerents, whether that is in South Champa Sea or elsewhere. And individual countries of ASEAN are entering into bilateral strategic pacts with China. So in other words, ASEAN as an organization is the weakest link in any talk about collective regional security in Southeast Asia. The fact that they have not been able to negotiate a code of conduct in the region over the last 25 years with China speaks volumes about it. So should we be looking at different security structures? Because any new security structure that is talked about, ASEAN throws a fit about ASEAN centrality in any collective mechanism in the region. What are your comments on that?
Now, if you use the term collective security and then try to understand ASEAN, you can't. There are different paradigms. ASEAN is a functional organization. It is not a power organization. And collective security is a power concept. The success of ASEAN is when either there is a clear balance of power or there is an absence of contention. That was the good period for us. The moment the Americans return and the Chinese become aggressive, then all these questions about the relevance of ASEAN start coming in. And the emergence of the Indo-Pacific concept is actually because ASEAN cannot function in a power way. What Brigadier Sahgal was saying about Indonesia, I don't think we should put much hope on them to act in a decisive manner in any conflict. They will not. It is of no interest to them. Now, Indian interests in the region are independent of what the Americans, the Japanese, and the Australians may think. We have our interests. What is our capacity to defend those interests or pursue them? That is where we need our Quad friends. Our interests are in the South China Sea, not so much in the Pacific. You asked a lot about the Kuril Island. The Kuril Islands are the gateway into the Pacific. So the Americans want to keep pushing Japan to defend that. India has no interest in the Kuril Islands. The Indo-Pacific, India has interest in the Indo, not in the Pacific. The Americans believe that one day China will inexorably rise and become a threat to Hawaii and the west coast of America. Actually, why is that India's interest? When India has a problem with China, we stand up ourselves with limited help from others. Yet, ASEAN will always ask you, oh, the Chinese are coming in. Why don't you say something? Dear friend, did you say anything when the Chinese were intruding into India? No. There are unrealistic expectations from India by both our friends and our partners. So I think we need to realize that we need to pursue our own interests. 30 years ago, when I was based in Japan, I wanted Japan to act like Japan acts now. But that time, Japan was having this extramarital affair with China and would not even look at India. But Indian power has grown since then. And when Indian power is projected, like in Tsunami 2004, then everybody wakes up. Hey, there is a kid on the block. But this power is real. It may not be adequate to pursue all your interests, but you have to keep doing. The biggest success that India has, that it persuaded Quad partners under the Biden regime to stop emphasizing the military postures and start challenging China on the functional, technological, and economic posture, because that is where your contention with them in ASEAN is. ASEAN is not going to strategically align with you. So why fight that battle? So you see all the Quad summits, and the next one in India, you will see the same, are focusing on bringing confidence to our partners that we can do things better than China. The challenge is we have to live up to that expectation. I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Gurjit Singh. May I request one of the audience members, Jayanti Patel, to mute themselves because you are causing interference in the discussion. Jayanti Lal V. Patel, please mute yourself. Moderator, please mute Jayanti V. Patel. Okay. My next question again goes to Dr. Nagao because discussion somehow is coming back to perceived Japanese posture. Since post-war World War II, Japan has been basically under the security umbrella of the United States. The new republic and the new constitution is dictated by General MacArthur. Any attempts to change that constitution have not been really successful, despite Shinzo Abe. And Ambassador Gurjit Singh talked about, undeclared extramarital relationship with China. Japan needs to emancipate its strategic establishment from the US influence in order to deal with the contemporary security situation in Asia. And for that reason, Japan will have to take some unilateral measures without being guided by the benevolent patronage of United States. So you are in Squad and you are in Quad, and you are being courted by the AUKUS to be part of that. But it might make sense for Japan to take some independent initiative to develop some alternative trilaterals. And those trilaterals could be Japan, India, Vietnam, Japan, India, Taiwan, without the presence of United States. The idea is to create security structures in case US defaults. US is going through great turmoil. You don't know what is going to happen in November in United States. And there may be a situation that United States under an isolationist president under Fort America may abdicate all the international responsibilities and obligations. Is Japan prepared for that?
It is a very interesting question, sir. In Japan, yes, there is some discussion about the declining US influence, and Japan should take a little independent role in the security arena. But at the same time, most of the Japanese do not agree with them that is true, because compared with other countries, Japanese think the US is still powerful. Because when we compare with the US power and the China power, one of the indicator is how many allies and partners the US has and China has. In case of China, when we count formal allies, treaty-based ally in this case, total number is 53, and China has only North Korea. So that's why when we culminate all of these power of allies, indeed, the US is far stronger than the China's group. And currently, Russia's aggression in Ukraine pushed these allies to strengthen their coordination. So that's why the Japanese believe still US is very strong. And at the same time, Japan should take more responsibility in the US circle as an independent power. That is also true. And in case of the relation with Asia, as you mentioned about Japan, Vietnam, Japan, Indonesia, and especially India and Japan, that is the most important Japanese thing. So when we check which prime minister visits this country, indeed, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, as a foreign trip, he visited these three countries. Prime Minister Suga, successor of Abe, also visited these three countries as a first visit. And now Kishida, yes, he visited the negotiation with Europe to support Ukraine. But except this, his Asian visit is also to the same countries. Vietnam, Indonesia, India, these are the first foreign trip in Asia. So that's why this is consistency strategy of Japan. Japan focusing on these three countries as a partner in Asia, and the US do not have such kind of advantage relation with Asian country. That's why when US decides Indo-Pacific strategy, Japan's advice is influential to the United States. So Japan will be the one kind of the negotiator or mediator between these Asian country and the United States. In this case, Japan can show something important role in the Indo-Pacific strategy of the US circle, Japanese believe. So that's why currently Japan is not independent military power, but at the same time, Japan's role itself is expanding, we believe. That is what happened and my perception, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. I will be reading some questions from the audience. And the first one is from Santosh. who states, in recent times it has come in the news that Chinese military equipments are not performing as designed due to wrong design and corruption. In view of this, if it is correct, is Chinese threat real? That is the question from Santosh, and any of the panelists can answer, maybe starting with Brigadier Sahgal.
Actually, these reports are coming often. Yes, there are problems with the Chinese equipment, their radars, their aircrafts. They don't operate in the optimum fashion. Uh, when Russia invaded Ukraine and launched a massive mechanized offensive, we suddenly found that the Russian tanks were being shot left, right, and center, and there were large number of tanks carcasses all over the place. So the bottom line basically is this: is that the military equipments are actually tested under operational circumstances, and operational circumstances demand a different kind of system. And at least I am very conscious, and I believe what our experience in Ladakh has been is that the Chinese equipment performance is about 70% of the rated value, what they talk about. Uh, even their integration of their sensors in a multi-domain kind of a scenario is not all that profound and all that great as it's being touted to. So I have a term for people with asymmetric power capabilities, and I said leverageable power. So I look at Chinese leverageable power as much below than what it is perceived in the CIPRIs and other IISS publications in terms of totality of military power.
Thank you, Brigadier Sahgal. Anyone else wants to join on this? Okay, we'll go on to the next question, and this question is coming from one of our audience member, Mr. P.K. Majumdar, and the question specifically goes to Ambassador Gurjit Singh. And basically what he's saying is that India should be more vigilant about the safety of oil rigs and platforms which are spread in east and west coast of India. You want to make any comments on that?
Sure.
Because of the maritime threats.
The presence of the Indian Navy and the Coast Guard around the Indian conception of the Indo-Pacific, which is up to the coast of East and Southern Africa and in the South China Sea, is pretty permanent. At any given moment, there are Indian ships everywhere. Now, when you notice this, if there is a tsunami, earthquake, volcano, and there is HADR required, suddenly you'll find an Indian ship is there. Same if there is a food insecurity, or there is a cyclone hitting Mozambique, or food required in Eritrea in the Red Sea, you'll find within 3 days, the Indian Navy is there. So this is not because the Indian Navy is going from bases on the coast. It is already there, patrolling. So Indian Navy has a good reputation and reach. And it is a big contributor in dealing with non-traditional threats in which ASEAN countries, African countries, all have great faith in India because we are a benign power. We are not a challenging power. Certainly, when it comes to defending our own economic interests, which includes defending oil rigs and platforms, these are mainly around Vietnam and not so much on the Indian Ocean side. I think we are hovering around there, looking from time to time. If those come under threat, it will have to be a joint operation between India and Vietnam. Mostly what happens is that the Vietnamese say, let's not have a scrap. We will talk to the Chinese and we will settle it. And they find a way out. But I think our presence is there. And we are ready to defend them if need be. But the question again arises, which you asked earlier, and I think Professor Nagao asked, that given a supposing there is renewed Chinese activity, like militarizing another atoll. Are we going to go and challenge it? Strategically, we should challenge it. Legally, we should challenge it. But we don't. All this talk about the Quad, we don't go and hold up the Chinese. The Chinese now don't need to bring any of their aircraft carriers into the South China Sea. They have enough bases on reclaimed islands to take care.
Yes.
But this is where we need to raise the cost that China will have to bear to be overbearing in this region. That is what we have to do. And we have to challenge them not only on strategy, but on real things which matter to people, like medicine. So, there is a biopharmaceutical alliance of 5 countries. A meeting was held yesterday. I thought an excellent idea. India, Japan, and Singapore working on green ammonia and hydrogen. Excellent idea. So these are the ways we will challenge China in the minds of our neighbors, and you cannot supplant China's deep pockets, but you can provide alternatives. And this includes, there's no point providing an alternative and then not being able to defend it. So we have to defend it. That is very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Gurjit Singh. There are a couple of more questions in the chat room, but they have already been dealt with by our distinguished panelists. So I'm about to end the discussion, but before I do that, I do have actually one of our members of the International Advisory Board, just like Brigadier Arun Sahgal, it is Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor in the audience. Ambassador Kapoor, would you like to make any comments?
Yes, just give me 1 minute.
Instead of me providing context for this question, we'll have a live demonstration.
Thank you very much. And it's been a great pleasure to listen to the 3 experts on the panel. And what I'd like to just ask them, and since they are also people who have a lot of experience and understanding of the entire region, is that in the case of the next few years, how do they see the main, China in the Indo-Pacific evolving, and whether India's role is to be more significant in terms of its involvement in dealing with threats far off from its borders, far off from its maritime domain. Thank you very much.
Okay, Brigadier Sahgal, you wanted to start?
No, I just want to, okay. So, one of the elements that have emerged out of the Ukraine war is that you can initiate a conflict, but to end the conflict is a very, very difficult proposition. And the terms and conditions of ending the conflict are horrendously difficult and different from what you thought your own interests were. Having said that, I've also said in my discourse is the fact is that as long as the first island chain remains as a bulwark of the Western defense system in East Asia, China will remain a restrained power. So there is a contradiction in terms. This contradiction in terms has to be broken. When will China bite the bullet? I do not see China biting the bullet in the immediate future. When I talk about immediate future in 2030, till 2030, 35, next 10 years, no. There will be no attack on Taiwan. It will not be possible for the Chinese to do it because the implications of the attack in terms of destruction and the damage to its reputation and otherwise capacity capability will be much beyond its comprehension. The second point you raised is regarding India's role. So we keep telling our American friends very clearly, look, when you're talking about an Indo-Pacific, you are talking about East Asian security system where we are not a player in it. We are not a player in the Taiwan scenario. What maximum we can do, in fact we have started to do right now, is 2 things. One is we are supporting the Americans in the MSRO. American ships have already been to a Larsen and Toubro shipyard. They have been repaired and they have been overhauled. More ships are coming. The British are sending their ships over there. So we are creating a facility of military ship and repair organization to support them. The second element which is being done and which is being put into place is, should the Americans have most of their ships which are run on nuclear energy, but their large number of frigates and other support vessels do not have a nuclear propulsion. They have not got normal steam and propulsion, so they need oil and resources. Efforts could be made. These are points for discussion with the Americans, where India could provide the Americans the support and logistics system under LIMOA, the foundational agreement that we have signed,
Yeah.
and also do a bit of IC deployments to ensure the critical slots are open from where the critical resources required for any of these eventualities are passing through. So these are the couple of elements that we are doing. We are all please in discussion, but the Americans are aware. But unlike people like my friend Ashley Tellis and all who want to hold us responsible for why not hold the Americans, we are not American allies. We are not America. We are strategic partners, and we have our own interests. But yes, as a strategic partner, we'll support to the extent we can, just like we expect them to do the same heavy lifting for us in our case. Thank you. I will finish here, sir.
Ambassador Gurjit Singh.
Thank you. I just want to make two brief points. Taiwan. The absorption of Taiwan into the People's Republic would be the crowning time of renewed Chinese power projection. That time is not now. They are not going to go and fight to take it. They are going to wait in this. So I think we just put. But what the Chinese succeed in doing, and everybody assumes that there is a power imbalance. I mean, my co-panelists also have been saying that there's a power imbalance. The Americans are very powerful. No, the Chinese use the unpredictability to deal with all of us. They choose when they will come to the East China Sea, when they will come into the Himalayas, when they will go into the Philippines, and when they will provoke Taiwan. They are setting the narrative. This unpredictability option that they have, this needs to be curbed. This will not be curbed because we believe that the Chinese are not powerful, but the Chinese are powerful enough to keep all of us on tenterhooks. That is not a good place to be in. We need to raise the cost of their unpredictable behavior. That is very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Gurjit Singh. Dr. Nagao, do you want to make any comments on Ambassador Kapoor's points that
Yes.
he raised?
If so, in this case, Japan's perception I would like to introduce. Yes, if the crisis has happened in Taiwan, it will be the emergency for Japan, we believe, because of the 2 points. If China will not attack Japan, the US base in Japan will be the sacred place, and the US fighter jet can attack China, but return to the sacred place repeatedly. So that's why China cannot win. So that's why there's a high possibility that China will attack the US base in Japan, and it will create China versus Japan war. And at the same time, if Japan will not join, the US will think Japan is not allied. So that's why another reason Japan need to join. So if China invade Taiwan, automatically it will create the China versus Japan war. But in this case, Japan is worrying Russia's reaction and North Korea's reaction. So there's a high possibility that they will cooperate with China, and repeatedly Chinese strategic bomber and the Russian strategic bomber were their fleets circling around Japan recently, jointly. So that's why Japanese perceptions, if China invade Taiwan, it will escalate. It could escalate to be the very big war of the great powers in this region. So that means that it is not easy to happen, but at the same time, it will be the real Cold War in this region. So that's why the recent move of the Japan, US with the Philippines or South Korea or Australia or Quad and AUKUS, all of these move is related to this scenario. So that's why it will be the one kind of the world order. This is the Japanese perception recently. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nagao. Thank you, Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor. There are two comments I'll make. One is about Chinese behavior of unpredictability. Chinese strategic behavior is characterized by constant, continuous, unpredictability, which makes it very predictable. So people, when they are saying there's China will not intervene in Taiwan in near future because of the lessons learned from Ukraine, I think are not understanding Chinese behaviors. China will surprise you maybe in 2027 by focusing on invasion of Taiwan, because China makes a move when no one expects it to make the move, so that you guys are unprepared for it. So Chinese behavior is continuously, constantly predictable because of their unpredictability. That is one issue. Second issue is India's involvement with Taiwan. The relationship between India and Taiwan is increasing, and it should continue to increase. Having said that, Taiwan's view is that People's Republic of China is Western Taiwan. Now that has implications because Taiwan still holds claim to Arunachal Pradesh. Taiwan still condones occupation of an independent nation of Tibet. And in this scenario, India has to categorically tell the American friends that there's no way India can participate in any anti-China containment activity in Taiwan Strait till Taiwan comes clean and gives up once forever claims on Indian territory. We can be very, sort of situationally, emotionally blackmailed by the superpowers, joining a conflict which may not be strategically advantageous to us, especially the party you are defending still has claims on your territory. So that is something very important. But with that, I will be ending this discussion. My heartiest thanks to Dr. Nagao, Brigadier Arun Sahgal, and Ambassador Gurjit Singh. We are sorry that the Major General Bakshi could not join us. My thanks also to our audience who took 1.5 hours of time off from their schedule. I'm also thankful to Team CSA, which includes Mr. Rajiv Verma, Mr. Ripudaman Pachori, who helped me organize these discussions. Without their help, without their volunteerism, these events are not possible. So heartiest thanks to them. It was a very fruitful discussion, enlightening, eye-opening, understanding the perspectives of each other. And I think this continuous dialogue is required to understand the ground situation or maritime domain awareness in East Asia and Southeast Asia. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
We look forward to your future participation in our activities.
Professor Nagao, Oyasumi-nasai. Thank you, Dr. Adityanjee. Very happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. It is an honor for me, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll be ending the meeting now.